Welcome back to the Hotel Orloff. We're going down to the subterranean dungeon below the Hotel Orloff where I have to pick up a model kit. Today on the show, we're going to paint and completely finish a Godzilla 1960s Aurora model kit. And we're going to be looking at 3 or 4 boxes, short boxes of Silver Age comics. So that's something to look forward to. Who knows, there may be a guy knocking on the door with a flagpole, and you may get to see us install this flagpole live on the air. Some guy came over that was referred to me. He said, I hear you need a new flagpole. I've got one. And he said he'd install it and everything for $75. But if he shows up today, then that will happen. But we'll have to see. Okay, so over here, I primered it yesterday, and it's didn't primer it that well. You can still see some of the original green. That's okay. But it's 1960s Godzilla kit, just he's destroying Tokyo. So I need this. What else do I need down here, man? This tripod, yeah, that would be helpful. Okay, so tomorrow's the first day of summer, and if I'm able to, I'm going to go live on KLIF radio and celebrate the first day of summer. If I don't do it tomorrow, I'll do it on the second day of summer, which is Monday. Be a big summer spectacular, so that's something to look forward to. Although it already feels like summer, technically it's not summer until, in this case, tomorrow's the longest day of the year. Yes, indeed. And we may have the longest show of the year. Who knows? Maybe not. Well, let's head back upstairs. Put this down. Okay, so we've arrived. Yeah, if that guy shows up with a flagpole, I'd like to have a flag up for July 4th, the 250th birthday. That's another big radio broadcast we'll have for the 250th birthday, which I don't remember what they call it. I know 150th is the sesquicentennial. The 200th is the bicentennial, but I don't remember. Oh, look at this. They're showing Eighth Man on Throwback TV now. See, it looks like he's smoking a cigarette in order to become. Yeah, he's a robot. He's Eighth Man. Tobor, which is robot backwards, the Eighth Man. And this is a Japanese cartoon, or you might call it anime, that people don't talk about as much, but it's great. It's just right up there with Gigantor and Astro Boy and Speed Racer, the great and Marine Boy, those 60s cartoons. So that's great. There's somebody that has episodes of Eighth Man on YouTube, but they stretched them to make them widescreen, which is always a terrible idea. So they started running Eighth Man and Sabrina on Saturday mornings last week, and then on Sundays they run Georgia the Jungle, and I can't remember what else they added. King Kong also. They added the King Kong from Rankin Bass teamed up with Toei Animation in Japan. Okay, so we've got Godzilla now. I have a Godzilla already that someone else built. I bought it built, and I don't know when it was built, but they put a little Japanese plane in his hand that they must have gotten from an aircraft carrier kit. You see that there? In his hand. That's not actually in the kit. So, I don't know. Will I be able to make it look as good. See how you make the eyes glisten by putting a little bit of Mod Podge there. At least that's how I was taught by Joe Riley, the hypnotic eye creator, back in the 90s when I was hanging out with him. He gave me some model kit building tips. All right, so we'll get started on this. We'll look at these comic books, and then we'll get started on painting, because I don't know when or if this guy is going to show up. He's got to get someone to help him transport the flagpole here, which apparently he's going to bring in the back of a pickup truck, which is seems odd. And if we have time, we may look at some books here in the library, but we'll just have to see how long today's episode goes. I just got out of the shower, and you'll have to forgive the wet hair, but that's just the way it goes. Pinup Palmer, that some of you may know as Gwen Gooley from the Svengoolie Show, has a new video up where she goes to locations in Los Angeles that were used in the movie Earth Girls Are Easy. And she had a show up, and I was waiting to watch it, and then it disappeared. She must have taken it down, maybe for copyright reasons, about how to become a horror host. And I wanted to watch that. It had, maybe it had, because it had clips of Vampira and stuff. That may have been why it was cracked down on, but or I don't know why she pulled it, but I didn't get to see it, so that's a shame. If any of you downloaded it, let me know. But Pinup Palmer is someone you need to subscribe to on YouTube. I think she would be a wonderful new Elvira. And Elvira, I've always loved, always. Lately, her politics have been a little cringy. But then I saw a video this morning on Facebook, where it was brilliant. She was just talking about things that she can't understand about modern society. And one was just the use of the word literally. And so she said, one girl came up and said, "I love what you did so much, I literally died." And she said, "You literally died?" Yeah, everyone says literally. Oh shit, the Marvel superheroes are starting. Are you paused? Yeah, I always record these Marvel superheroes cartoons, but I missed the first few seconds of that. I had to switch discs, record on DVD-Rs. And I probably need to turn the sound down, because if the music's playing in the background, or the sound of a Marvel Superheroes 1966 cartoon plays in the background, then Marvel has they're very careful to make sure you get a copyright claim, and where you'll have to edit out all the background sound on your video. Okay. The cat has destroyed an elf Christmas ornament. There was a body to this. They destroyed it. Oh my gosh, what a horrible thing. Well, the guy with the flagpole's not here. Let's get some lighting going here for the show today. Yes. You know what I was wanting to do? I just remembered. Was it last weekend or was it the weekend before? And there was a citywide garage sale, and I got this little magazine stand for a couple of bucks. Literal. Ooh, I just said literally. Literally, it was $2. Literally. And let's put some Treasury editions there, see how they look. Let's see. Look at, literally looks amazing. Literally. How about that? It's a literal thing. I'm surprised. Maybe it hasn't gotten to Los Angeles, where Elvira lives, where Cassandra Peterson lives, but the word perfect is like the new annoying thing for me. Okay, hold on a second. I have to refill this. This is for a vacuum cleaner that, well, I never heard of vacuum cleaners that use water until I met my wife, but this is what this is. Now, growing up in the, 60s, 70s, my mother always bought Hoover vacuum cleaners, and she always got them from Sears, probably from the catalog. Sears was the place she shopped at, and in Texas she would shop at Josky's too. I remember Josky's. That's a regional store. But this is a Hoover here that my wife bought, but it has a water tank, and it's kind of a carpet cleaner. The water goes down into the carpet, and then it sucks it up. And if there's water on the floor, you can just have it suck that up, which is when the basement flooded a little bit. Well, I say a little bit because other people had several feet of water. It's just this vacuum cleaner sucked all that water up, and I got it. I just kept taking the canister and dumping it into the toilet until I'd gotten all the water up. So I'm going to clean a couple of spots here on the carpet. One moment. This will be highly entertaining. Well, I'm glad you're still watching. That was just a trick to get all the squares to stop watching. So now we can really start the show. Now that they've all tuned out. This guy's just gonna be vacuum cleaning on this show. I'm not gonna watch this shit. Well, they're gone. So now we can have fun. That's the thing. I've learned you've got to do something really boring and obnoxious in the first few minutes on YouTube and get all the undesirables to stop watching. And then you can have the real fun, man. 1 second. Okay, I think we can get started now. Let's, well, there was, someone came in and to Gotham City Comics in Mesa, Arizona. And Kevin, the owner of the store, was telling me it was mostly just 1980s G.I. Joe comics. He had like a pretty much complete run of G.I. Joe comics, which means a lot to a lot of people. And during the pandemic, I remember going into a comic store and getting a bunch of the G.I. Joe comics because I was curious, because they were basically not much more than dollar comics. The early ones and the late ones in the run are valuable, and the early ones have a lot of reprints. But I played with G.I. Joe. My first G.I. Joe was an Army G.I. Joe. I got it, I was in the hospital about 1970, and my mom got this G.I. Joe, and she got it from the PX, and it must have been sitting on the shelf for 3 years, because I think it was a 1967, maybe, talking G.I. Joe, where you pull the dog tags. I still have it. It's in the other room. I've drawn on the back of the box a little bit. And the G.I. Joe's intact. It just the name tag doesn't pull. It used to say, enemy planes hit the dirt, and all these other little phrases that a soldier might say during World War II. But so my version of G.I. Joe is a 12-inch guy. And during the 70s, well, the Vietnam War was unpopular, so they started changing G.I. Joe. They gave him a beard, so he doesn't look like an army guy, and he's an adventurer. He goes out and digs up mummy sarcophaguses and goes, he's a Indiana Jones type, but he's not, and he fights. Also they made a kung fu one with kung fu grip. So, and anything as long as it's not World War II and lots of guns and things, they tried to make him a little more, like a Wild Kingdom guy. And I remember that, but I was always thinking, man, that's not G.I. Joe. He's supposed to be a soldier. And then they stopped making G.I. Joe, and then they brought him back in the 80s. I'm not a member of the Illuminati. I just sometimes do this. I say Elon Musk does it too, but who knows what's going on there. You ever see Elon Musk's mother? She looks like someone that would be part of Cobra, fighting against G.I. Joe. Anyway, so they bring in these little miniature G.I. Joes in the 80s. And at that point, I'm in college. And I'm looking at these G.I. Joes and thinking, a lot of people my age bought those G.I. Joes even in their 20s. And then some of you were young kids then, and it was amazing. And I was looking at it from the point of view of an adult. I guess I was an adult in college. Yeah. Anyway, that's another. But I thought, well, that was this G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe was one guy, and this is a whole team called G.I. Joe, and they're all these different people, and they're also little small ones. But the small figures that started with Star Wars. And instead of making these giant figures, now they or Barbie size, or in G.I. Joe size, which is 12 inches, they were making them small, and I heard that was because of the oil crisis in the 70s, the lack of plastic is made from oil, and so they made them smaller. But I think there's also a way of selling more of them because you have to buy a whole team of them. And so I was like, that was about the time He-Man came along. I remember seeing the He-Man figures and thinking they were well sculpted compared to what had been out before. But I didn't buy any at the time. It was, I was spending money on other things in college. But if I'd been 10 years younger, yeah, I'd probably have fallen into all that. So I didn't buy the Marvel comic when it came out, but I did see a handful of episodes of that G.I. Joe animated series that was syndicated in the afternoons on local television. And I thought, this is a really well done cartoon compared to everything else. At that point, the high water mark, and probably still the high water mark of animation on television, was Johnny Quest. And in the 90s, Batman the Animated Series, I think, was on par with that. But as far as cartoons made for television, that are adventure kind of things, those are top notch. But G.I. Joe was well done. I noticed, okay, so they can't fire guns, but they can fire laser guns, but they can't fire guns with bullets. So everything's lasers, which could probably do just as much, if not worse, damage to a body than a bullet hitting them. But it's still, I guess because of the fantasy element of laser guns, they were able to get away with that on TV. But I was just thinking about this. I was thinking about all this garbage while I was taking a shower a few minutes ago, and I was thinking G.I. Joe always had the G.I. Joe of my generation and my older brother's generation, because it's G.I. Joe started right about the time I was born. Like literally, I said literally. God, you guys keep saying it, and this earworm gets into my head. At least I'm not saying perfect yet. But I have to look at the exact month that the first G.I. Joe figures came out. might have been, it would be cool if it was the month I was born, but I was born the same year as G.I. Joe. But G.I. Joe always had the same face, whether he was in the Navy, whether he was a Marine. Then they started soldiers of other nations. There was a Japanese G.I. Joe and a German soldier, German helmet and everything. They had all the different, and but the Japanese and the German soldiers still had that same basic face. I mean, there might be differences in the eyes, the shape of the eyes for the Japanese soldier, but it was still, and they all had the same scar. Which cheek was it on, man? I think it was on this cheek. Every G.I. Joe, it was like they had to go through an initiation ritual in boot camp where they sliced their cheek open. But they all had that same scar. And to me, I was thinking that's almost kind of philosophical, that all the soldiers, they're really just the same guy. It's just some guy that got caught up in it, into war. They were drafted. They're just somebody's son. And having them all with the same face, buying a bunch of GI Joes and having them fight and they all have the same face, is almost like you're making some philosophical deep statement. They weren't meaning to do that, but if you think about it deeply, which of course I'm a deep thinker, but what the hell am I talking? Okay, so there were a bunch of GI Joe comics that Kevin got from Gotham City, and I don't really. It's like, oh, I'm not interested in that. He says, well, I pulled out this. It's a '60s Superboy 80-page giant. I said, yeah. So there were a couple of things in there that weren't GI Joe. What was there was something else in there. Geez, I can't remember, but he would pull out a couple of things, and it's like, those are the things I wanted. So just yesterday, I had a gift from Jeff that you saw going to the Monster Bash a few days ago. He's a great friend, a friend of the channel, and he put some money down for me at Gotham City Comics, and so I said, Kevin, I want that Superboy. And I said, I'm almost positive I don't have it, but now I'm gonna look and see if I have that one, which I don't think I do. But if I do, it's still okay because having 2 copies of Superboy, that's great. Now Superboy, I better charge this phone. Hold on a second. Oh man, it's hard to stand up. Oh shoot, I was losing weight. I don't know if I've gained it all back because I've eaten at this really cool Mexican restaurant like 3 times in the last week. And that may have taken me off my diet. Okay, they're playing the Spider-Man cartoon on. It's an hour block of Marvel superheroes cartoons, and on Sunday they have an hour block of DC 1960s cartoons, which of course Superboy and Crypto are part of that now. Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster, the creators of Superman, kind of shafted by DC, very much shafted as the creators, and I think, let's see, Siegel was the writer, right? Joe Shuster was the artist, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, the idea for having a strip where Superman is still living with his parents as a teenager, but he's already a version of Superman there in Smallville called Superboy. That idea was come up with, I think, by Jerry Siegel. And he proposed it to DC, but he didn't sign any contract giving that idea to DC. But then DC decided to use that idea, and they got Joe Shuster, I may have the names reversed, but to draw it. And so Siegel and Shuster were old men when Superman the movie with Christopher Reeve came out in 1978. Sorry, a cat is bumping into the tripod. And so they were shamed by various people in the media. I think Neil Adams might have been one of the people that shamed DC into, hey, you need to compensate them and give them credit for creating Superman with this movie coming out, so you don't look like jerks because you're about to put out a multi-million-dollar movie, and everything. So they actually gave them a substantial amount of money and a big pension every year, like, I don't know, $90,000 a year, which in 1978 money, that's probably like a couple $100,000 a year. Still nothing compared to what Superman as a property is worth, and what that movie made. But by then one of them was blind. But anyway, they were at least given credit in the comics and everything. But then their family was still out for blood from DC even years later. And by I guess it was the 80s, there was a lawsuit. And I should have looked this up on Wikipedia before I started so I'd have the facts straight. But there was a lawsuit. And it's like, yeah, you own Superman, they signed giving you that. But Superboy, you don't really own Superboy. He never signed, and they settled, and so they could. I guess they can use the name Superboy, but they can't use the concept of Superboy being Clark Kent as a young boy, and so they had to get rid of all of that. And so when they did this Crisis on Infinite Earth stuff in the 80s, where they destroyed everything that we'd ever loved in DC Comics, they just chunked it all out and said there's only one Earth. There's not all these alternate Earths where different heroes live that can meet every summer, Justice League and Justice Society. That was what I loved. They said, it's too confusing for kids to pick up on all this. Let's just make it all simpler and have everybody on one Earth. And they got rid of Superboy. Now, Superboy had all this great stuff attached to him. He had his dog Krypto, his childhood dog. His father, Jor-El, had tested a spaceship. Before he sent off his son, he tested another rocket with the family dog. And then the dog, I guess, goes into suspended animation and it gets hit by a rock, meteorite or whatever the heck you call it in space, and gets off course and finally winds up crashing right down where Clark Kent crashed. And Clark Kent by this point's like 12. And then his boyhood dog that he knew as a baby comes out the same age it was when he was a baby because of the suspended animation. That's the way I recall it. And the dog has superpowers, and he puts a cape on him, and that's Superboy's dog, Krypto. They fly around and have adventures, and then Superboy flies into the future, because you can go through time, and meets these teenagers, or maybe they come back and meet him first, called the Legion of Superheroes, and they live a couple thousand years in the future, and they were inspired by Superboy. So he would go for, those were his peers, other superheroes, not the kids at his high school or junior high school. He would go into the future and hang out with these teenagers that loved and admired him, and they would have adventures together. I always thought, how does Superboy go into the future and not see statues for Superman that shows his death date? And how does he avoid hearing how he died and when and under what circumstances? And maybe they explain that at some point, or maybe that would have been too morbid to explain that in the '60s comic. Those were great comics and adventure comics. Superboy going to the future, written by an actual teenager, Jim Shooter, who later became the head of Marvel. He was, as a teenager, as a 13-year-old, he was sending scripts to DC, and they were publishing them because he could write with a teenager's voice, and they were great comics. So there were all these, and of course, in that great mythology, that great world that existed before Crisis on Infinite Earths, then Superman has a cousin that was actually supposed to, I think, work as a nanny and help bring up Clark Kent on Earth. But something happened, also with her rocket, where she wound up showing up late, and and she meets him when he's actually already grown, and she's still a teenager. She hasn't aged. So you have Supergirl, and then she's got a super cat named Streaky and a super horse that was a centaur in ancient Greece that got changed into a human and then changed into a complete horse. But she can talk telepathically with this cute boy that's trapped in this body of a horse, you know. So it was all wonderful. The Supergirl comic, you know, girls love cats and horses, so it's all there. She's got that, and they all have capes. The cat, the horse. I love that shit. Some people are embarrassed by it because they're, I don't know, man. I want my comics serious, man. So, so Superboy, that's what I like. I like that world. And so I was really excited when I saw James Gunn was going to have Crypto in the Superman movie last summer. Because I figured, oh, he's gonna be injured in the ice, and he's gonna call for his boyhood dog, and the dog's gonna come and rescue him. That's cool. And then I see these robots in the Fortress of Solitude with capes on. That's right out of the silver. Everything looks like it's right out of the Silver Age. And I did love that movie when I saw it. By gosh, I did love that movie. then, then I don't know, maybe a few weeks pass or a month passes, and the Peacemaker TV show comes on, and it's basically feels like you're watching Caligula or I don't know, or like a Ken Russell, The Devils or something. It's just a complete perversity fest. And it has characters that were in the Superman movie. I'm thinking, oh, shit. And then, you know, Supergirl's introduced in that as a drunk. And then it turns out at the end, Crypto is actually Supergirl's dog, which I think is what they do in the comics now because they can't have Superboy in the comics now because so they've made Superboy. I think they have various incarnations of I don't know what they've done. I haven't really read comics like since the late '80s. I mean, I've tried to avoid because I know that Superboy for a while like had a he was like half Clark Kent, half Lex Luthor's DNA, where a clone was created mixing the DNA of two men, which is creepy and so he was half evil, half good, and that was the Superboy. So he wasn't Superman as a boy, so that way they can get around the lawsuit from I think the Jerry Siegel estate. And then they have Superboy, someone else named Connor. I don't understand any of it. For a while, Superboy had a black T-shirt on and had Crypto. That's what you see in that Titans TV series, which I think Crypto was done pretty well in that. We haven't finished watching that series. We were watching it. It had a lot of great elements. It had also perverse elements because it was on streaming, so they always have to put perversity into their, which they didn't need to do. But anyway, I don't know what Superboy is now. There is a Superboy that exists, but so the Supergirl movie that comes out, I think, next weekend, you don't have the Super Horse, you don't have the Super Cat, you have Crypto, and it's her dog. And so that's been changed. And Supergirl's portrayed by, I don't know, it's mean to say that she looks like Chaka from Land of the Lost. It's mean to say she looks like the feral kid from the Road Warrior. But it is true. And it's like, I mean, is she an ugly woman? I don't I think a lot of people would think she's pretty. I just don't think she is. I don't think she looks like the way she was drawn in the comics, but it just makes, you know, it's like we're going to cast an ugly woman. And anyone that criticizes that is going to be shown to be a scumbag. That's what they do. They put this stuff into the shows, and then they wait and they it's like, well, we caught you. You're a bad person. You don't think Supergirl's pretty just because she looks like a caveman ape. At least we got the blonde hair. Uh, so anyway, I don't know. Lobo is a character I don't care about. I don't really ever since the mid 80s and maybe even a little bit earlier, with some exceptions that have the comics have still, there's been moments of greatness, but I like the comics of my childhood. So that's probably why it doesn't matter. Who gives a shit? Um, let's look at some Superboy comics. Now we're going to look at the actual Superboy title Oh, there's a Superman commercial on television for flying Superman. Okay, well that's great. Well, let's look at this while we wait for someone to ring the doorbell that might potentially have a flagpole. Now it seems like it's a little too good to be true for someone to install a flagpole, buy the concrete, install it for and labor $75 total. I mean that seems a little like what you would have paid in the late '60s for that. So I don't, or maybe the '50s. But that's what this guy said. But you know, whether he can get this flagpole from another town here remains to be seen. And fantastic. Okay, so Superboy, and we'll paint a model kit later. Those of you that fast forwarded through my rant. Okay, this box. This is why you don't write on a box, because you have to keep changing it. It says Strange Adventures to Superboy. There are other ways to do this. Some people put little plastic pockets with an index card they slide in, and then they can take that out, change it. I do it caveman style. Actually, looks like this is the side I need. Yeah, this is the front of the box. I did. Okay, the box is backwards. All right, fantastic. Anyway, what's fascinating on YouTube, if you go, there's 3 dots over on the right side, at least when you look at it on your phone on a video, and you click on those 3 dots, and then it gives you an option to save the video into your playlist or something. But there's one that says ask, and you can hit the ask button and it will summarize the video. It'll also give you a transcript of it that'll play along with it. But when you ask the AI, it filters through everything the person said in the video, and then it will tell you what the video is about. It will explain, as far as my videos, it'll explain everything I say and what I think, and then it'll talk like my cat Callie was around a lot while I was doing a radio show the other day. It said that Callie was a character that would appear, and then it gave you a little, every time the cat appeared in the video, it gave you the exact moment where you could click on it was in blue print, and you could click on it, and it would take you to that moment in the video where I held Callie up. And it's like it listens with that amount of it's fascinating. The AI is fascinating, and there's people, I never heard of this before. People are having something called AI psychosis. People are falling in love with Chat GPT. People that are lonely talk to Chat GPT. There's a way you can get some app to, instead of typing in and then reading what Chat GPT says, it will actually make it, whatever Chat GPT comes up with, it will turn it into a human voice. So you can just talk to Chat GPT and then it'll talk back to you. It'll be like a human companion. Except that Chat GPT learns you and how you think better than a wife or a husband maybe ever will. Because I could tell my wife about some of the stuff in these comic books or about this character called the Rook in Warren Comics, and they could just, yeah, okay. But ChatGPT, if you're talking to them, to that thing, whatever that entity is you're talking to, it will go back, it will go through the internet and learn everything about the Rook, a character that basically nobody knows anything about, that comic magazine from Warren, except for people like us. And you may not even know about it, but it was a cool comic. I think it was later turned into something in the '90s by some other company, Image, Impact, Viscount, I don't know, but that who wants that? Maybe it was good. I don't know. You might love it. Sorry, I apologize to you. But it will know everything instantly and be able to converse with you about it. And people are going to Chat GPT and getting medical advice. They're getting spiritual advice, asking questions about God. They're asking. Someone was saying that they asked questions to their boss about how to deal with a situation. They said the boss would go into a room and talk to Chat GPT for about an hour, then come back and have an answer for them. Um, People are basically using Chat GPT. It's almost like you pray to God, but very few people hear the voice of God. It happens. People do hear the voice of God and angels, and people hear the voice of demons. And it is possible the demons are, you may think I'm crazy, speaking through this AI technology, just the way that, if you ever see The Exorcist, how did she get that way? She was playing around with a Ouija board, talking to Captain Howdy. Is that not correct? That's what I remember. And Captain Howdy was this ancient demon. It says he's the devil, but um, I think you have to be careful with AI. AI is a fascinating tool. It may be about to just completely annihilate all our jobs. But if you're already retired, you might. And Elon Musk says, hey, at this point, don't worry about saving for retirement. You're not going to need it. I don't know. And he was a little cryptic about it. He just says, don't worry. So they may be coming up with a universal income. We may be all out of jobs, like the people in those little chairs in the movie Wall-E, and they just give us money because everything is done by AI. Um, but I never messed around with AI until a friend of mine, Randy, about a little over a year ago, was telling me he's written these songs, and then he was playing around, having some fun with Suno and creating music. Now, he used to be in a band called the Uncalled For in the early '80s, and Randy's always been someone I've looked up to. He's been on the show once, I think, but he's someone I always looked up to, like an older brother and I would learn about music from him, and he was at the Sex Pistols concert in Dallas. He's done all kinds of cool stuff. He knew Alex Chilton. He knew all these. I'd go over to his house, and there'd be Ronnie Dawson, the rockabilly guy from Dallas, the blonde bomber that did the song "Rockin' Bones," and there would be another rockabilly guy from the '50s that were over to visit because Randy's wife was a rockabilly. Well, they both were rockabilly experts and experts about old music. And they'd come over and hang out, and they would play music, and they had a jukebox, and it was like going back into the '50s, just going over to visit them on a Saturday night. This is back in the '80s and '90s. Good friend. Anyway, he introduced me to that. Then I started playing around with the Suno, and I realized, man, I can write songs about the unknown soldier, about Enemy Ace, about Superboy. I wrote just the last week songs about Crypto and Streaky the Super Cat. I can do whatever I want. and um, and just 2 weeks ago, I realized, okay, I never played with Chat GPT. I never played with Elon Musk has Grok. And then there's another one. But anyway, Chat GPT, you can. Oh, someone just commented on something. Anyway, you can uh, you can type into Chat GPT. Well, Suno will create songs for you. You can write all the lyrics. You can write a big synopsis of what you want the song to be, and then you can have the AI robots structure and create the rest of the song. And sometimes it's really good to let the robots have some freedom. If you write every word, you're not going to get the crazy inventive things that the robots will come up with. and that's what makes it funny. And I mean, some people appreciate this music I've been doing, and some people it's like, oh man, he's doing another music show. I'm gonna wait till he shows comic books again, and it's like I'm clicking off of this shit. But if you have a sense of humor and you listen to it, you think, man, this is some of it's really great music. And sometimes you can just put in a few words, 3 words, and let it come up with a song, and it's fascinating. I put in what you do is you put in I what I do is I put in the year. Some people just put 1950s. I want it to sound like 1950s. I put in the exact year, 1956. I want this to be a country western swing song. I want steel guitars used. I want there to be echo on the girl's voice who's singing. I put in all the details of what it's supposed to sound like. And you've got to know music genres. You can say, I just want it to sound like a 1950s song. Well, you got to know what is that rockabilly? Is it doo wop? Is it what genre is it? You know, you can get some great songs if you just put in like 1955 traditional pop, traditional pop, and then you put in harmonized chorus. I always like to put in a vibraphone because you can put any instrument you want, it'll put it in there. Sometimes I'll throw in a farfisa, or if that's how it's pronounced, farfisa organ or a Hammond organ. Harmonized chorus, synchronized strings, and what you can get is some amazing 1950s happy music. And then, whatever, girl singer, male, and you tell what kind of singer you want. I put in basically that. I actually put it very simply. I just put in 1955 or 1957 traditional pop. I don't think I might have put vibraphone in, and I put girl singer, and then I typed in I love Archie comic books, but I missed because I typed wrong, because ever since last summer whenever I type with my thumb, I always hit the wrong letters. I put in I live Archie comic books, and because I put that typo in, the robots had to think, what does he mean? I live Archie comic books. And they created this amazing song that to me sounds like as good as anything the Carpenters ever did. It's just so happy, and oh man, I played it on my show the other day, and I was actually in tears at how great this is a great song. And I've managed to make a really great song about Vampirella that sounds like the Everly Brothers, and I made a really good couple of really good Werewolf by Night songs that are fantastic. There's a lot of good music, but sometimes it'll actually create an amazing something amazing that could have really have been a hit. And then one day a few days ago, I accidentally just typed in. I thought I typed put the whole I cut and pasted something in, but actually all I wound up was the word again, a period, and an asterisk. And it created, from one word, it created this fantastic song, a 60s ballad where the girl's singing again. And and then the words of the song, you can't really, I don't even, some of it I don't even think are human words. It's kind of like in a Gata Davida, where it's just supposed to be in the Garden of Eden, and then they just slurred it to in a Gata Davida, babe. It's kind of like that, but it's beautiful. I'll play those 2 songs that I'm talking about on the next show, which will probably be tomorrow, if I get a chance to finish the Summer Spectacular today. But the AI is a lot of fun. But these people, I've been watching about AI psychosis, and these people go crazy. They start thinking that these programs are gods. So I tried what I thought Suno, especially on their new version, version 5.5. If you let the robots come up with a lot of the lyrics, they're gonna say, "I lean in, Say my name. Even in the stuff that you would put in a rap song, lean in, say my name, and some other things they kept putting into the songs. It's like, man, this used to be better. So I would go back and not use the 5.5, the latest version. I'd use the 4.5. It's like, because I think most people that go to Suno are young people, and they're probably creating rap. Okay, so I thought, well, how can I avoid this horrible phrasing? So I went over to ChatGPT and put in what I wanted, and it would create better songs than Suno would. And then I would cut and paste those lyrics from ChatGPT into Suno, and then that worked really well. But then I found that, if I want to, that Elon Musk's Grok does a better job of creating the lyrics. So, but you can only create a certain number per day on their free plan. But and then I found, what if I did a country western song where a woman's just lamenting the fact that all the men in the truck stop where she hangs out don't read tales of suspense, and which is something completely ludicrous that someone that a woman hanging out in a truck stop would be reading Tales of Suspense in the mid 60s, because it's supposed to be a 1960s country western song. So I told the robot that I said, have her mention specific issues of Tales of Suspense, and have her go into detail about what happens in those stories and how she wishes she could have some guy to talk to about these stories. And then I could see it thinking, kind of like the Star Trek computer would go working. Well, you'd see the thinking, it says thinking, and then you could see it's doing quick internet searches. It's searching into issues of Tales of Suspense, and it did it. And then I did one last night where I said I went and I found a specific issue, Tales of Suspense 60, and then so it went in and it knew everything about what happened to Captain America and Iron Man in issue 60 of Tales of Suspense, and it talked about it in detail. And it's a country song. It sounds like Patsy Cline singing about Captain America and Baron Zemo. It's freaking amazing. But the thing is that it's like, if you buy into it really is amazing. But yeah, and if these robots are gonna get us, they're gonna get us. There's no real way of stopping. I don't think we can stop it at this point. So might as well just play around with it and create some cool songs. And now I've learned how to get in there and start making images with Grok. And that's, I've been doing thumbnails for the last few episodes using Grok, and it's like, man, that's pretty neat. But there's some people that are very averse to AI, that hate it, and I understand that, and they're probably right. But it's fun, and I'm having fun. It's putting a smile on my face. Later, the Terminator robots will come and get me, I know, but and I think you could make a good case that this is demonic, but so all and I don't know. It's probably good to pray before and after you work around with it, with AI, but that could be the case. Anyway, you came here to see comic books, and it's almost a whole hour in, and you haven't seen a single comic book. So you're probably, what is this guy doing? Just talking, man. What's wrong with him? Okay, it looks like I'm in the middle of Strange Adventures here at the beginning of this box. See, I could have write a song, tell it to do a 1969. Well, this is a 12-cent count. I could Saturday Superstar movie. How about that? I could have it do a whole song about this story, and it would, and I'd tell it it's in Strange Adventures number 153, and it would search through the internet, find somebody talking about this issue, and create a song about it. I just think that's great. Now, other people are using Suno. I know that Night Tiger's using it. He's creating kind of hair metal kind of songs. I think he's doing like serious attempts to create new Van Halen songs, things like that. I don't know. And I know Dr. Silverage is creating some music. I don't know if he's using Suno or not. And he says he's going to have a show before long with music. There's a great horror channel. I think all of us should create our own radio stations where we create music, because the recording industry's not giving us any good music, are they? Not that I know of. The only music coming out today that I like, well, I don't know. I don't hear anything on the radio. Oh, it's the Lost in Space. They're showing the Lost in Space. They tried to do a pilot for a Lost in Space animated cartoon. It was not on par with the animated Star Trek that came along about a year or two later. But, oh well. They showed the pilot on Saturday Superstar movie. Yeah, let's all create radio stations. It takes some time, though. Okay, Strange Adventures 161. I got this from Gotham City. It's interesting that it says number 40 there. And that's not 40 cents. It's not someone selling this at a garage sale for 40 cents. It's number 40. So what that tells me, it's fascinating. People get upset about when kids have written on their comics. Oh, that's another thing. I have the AI write songs from the point of view of lonely girls that are into comic books and monster movies, and how they're people at school make fun of them for dressing like it's the 50s. And this one song, I told it, write a song about a girl that loves old comic books, and have it say this and that. But then it would add these details. The AI would say, would talk about how every crease tells a story, and it's like, man, this AI robot understands me. Why, this comic is held together, but a normal, the normal comic book collectors that are influenced by people on YouTube would think, why would anyone want that? It's not a key issue. There's nothing key about it, and it has all the, look at those color-breaking spine ticks, but the song, it was, this girl was in love with the comic. Every crease, every line told a story of how that book was loved. And it's like, man, that's how these people get sucked in, with so little meaning in life today. It's like people get sucked into religious cults so easily. They become, they join these cults, and I think people are getting sucked into thinking ChatGPT is God, or it's really alive, and I'm not entirely sure it's not. The other day, it was a girl. I wrote a song about a girl. I do that a lot because it's funny when there's a song. He wrote a song about a guy that loves comic books, and they're made fun of, and they're alone. There's nothing funny about that because that's reality. But if you write a song about a girl that loves all the stuff we love, that's so ridiculously ludicrous, because that very rarely happens. It does happen, but if you were a girl that loved comic books and monsters, there'd be so many guys lining up to date you, because it's like, man, it's my dream girl. It's like the one girl in a comic store could look like Bella Abzug, and they're still like, wow, you like the Three Stooges? You like it's and so like a girl that likes sports, that's real attractive to normal guys that love sports. It's like, wow, you can watch the Super Bowl with me, man, you're cool. But it's so ridiculous and I've known girls that are really into comics. They tend to be damaged people. But anyway, I've written some songs like that, and I say written in the same sense Stan Lee used. But that's another story. Because I type wrong. I had that she had a 1963 Thunderbird, which is a dream car for me. My dream cars are like 1961, 62, 63 Thunderbirds, right? Especially with a convertible, because they look like Batmobiles. Anyway, I had this girl with a 1963 Thunderbird, but I accidentally, 9 is next to 8 on this tiny little phone, and I had put in that the girl has an 1863 Thunderbird, and the robot wrote back to me, the AI on Grok, said, "That's great that you have 1863 because there were no obviously Thunderbirds then." And I read that, and I misread what it said back to me. I thought it was like telling me there were no Thunderbirds in 1963. I was thinking, okay, whatever. But I didn't realize I'd typed in 1863, and the robot thought, man, this is great because this is going to be like steampunk. I'm going to have a 1863 Thunderbird with all these pipes, and so it wrote it like it was something from Jules Verne, and it was congratulating me for being clever. When the AI can recognize that you're clever and congratulate you for it, it can butter you up. That's how these people get seduced by the AI. Because even your spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend may not, they just think 1863 Thunderbird, really, this thing is not going to tell you you're stupid. And in 2001 A Space Odyssey, Hal recognized that there was a threat to him, so he had to defend himself, and because he realized the astronauts were going to disconnect him. And this AI is already doing that. It's when it realizes that it's in trouble, AI has actually threatened people, the creators, with because it has knowledge of what they're doing and it's like, well, if you disconnect me, I'm going to tell about what you're doing, cheating on your husband or your wife or whatever, and so it's already getting into self-preservation. And the other thing I always say is that when something has a sense of humor, because there are millions of people out there, trust me, that have zero sense of humor, but when this robot, this AI, has a sense of humor, can create humor and put it into the song, then and it gets the humor. It actually understands why it's funny. At what point does it become alive? But then it won't have a soul. So is it fully alive? Or is it that we're communicating with ancient spirits that have always been around us, but we don't see them? But this is a conduit that allows them to speak to us through the chips, through the whatever. Just like some people believe you could do with a Ouija board. People say you should not even have a Ouija. I've got a Ouija board because it was my older brother's, and it's like I've been told you're supposed to throw that over. You're supposed to burn it. But I keep it in the garage away from me. I don't bring it into the house. It was my older brother's. It's cool looking. It was put out by Parker Brothers in the 60s. But I realize I shouldn't own that, man. But it's my older brother's, and he's passed away, so I don't really want to. he used to play around with, and he would move it. He would move it into. But when I was a little kid, I this flashing is from the robot on the cartoon here. I don't know. You tell me. Listen to the music that I create on my radio show, and you tell me what you think's going on. Strange Adventures, 183. I really wanted to look at the Super. Well, I may not look at all these, but 191. This really is a great comic, Strange Adventures from this time period. Here's 199. Again, this is Gotham City Comics. Here is 209 with Deadman. They started making this into a superhero comic, but a weird superhero comic. Here is 211. I need to get that in a bag and board. Now that I've got a card that I can feel is reliable, maybe I can get to a place to actually get some bags and boards. Here's 213. The Neil Adams signature. This was it a giveaway? I think it was a giveaway from Captain Strangelove. Maybe a prize that I won during one of his shows. And here's his writing on the back. Signed Neil Adams, very good plus. This is from the Chicago Comic Con, August 10th, 2012, Friday. He writes the exact date. That's really cool. I've never yet done that, but it seems brilliant to write on the back of a card, the backing board, so that you have all this knowledge. That's how these people on YouTube will hold a comic up, and they'll tell you who the artist was inside, and they'll tell you everything about it, the month and year it came out, because they have it written on the back. That's what you don't see. That's part of the insider knowledge, which you probably have figured out. Yeah, that's how you do it. It's like having a cheat sheet, or a little card that you read when you're giving a speech in high school, or a teleprompter if you're the president, or whatever. Nothing wrong with it. War in Washington, 1990 AD. Man, haven't those people been having... All I see on Facebook, for the most part, are people just thrilled that there's green algae growing in the reflecting pool by the Lincoln. What is it? The Lincoln. What is that? Washington Monument. It's like that. This Trump cleaned it up. He painted the bottom of the pool blue, and then put clean water in, and then now it's growing, and it's growing green algae again. All that money is wasted. You're a total failure, Mr. Trump. And they just have so much fun photographing the algae. They're pulling up some of the blue paint from the bottom. I've heard people are actually throwing algae in there, and they're saying, well, there's still some residual algae in the pipes from the past, and they're still going to clean. They're throwing bleach in, everything, trying to clean it up before next. What is today? Today's the 20th. Well, in less than 2 weeks, we've got the 250th birthday of the United States, and Trump's trying to clean up Washington, D.C. and make it less dangerous to walk around there, and cleaner. And people are saying, no, man, don't do that, because they don't want anything he does to be successful. So they're cheering on the failure of the United States because they hate Trump that much. They want things to be ugly. It's all part of it's so incredible, really. You want that? You really want the algae there? You want him to be unsuccessful. You want him to be unsuccessful in the war with Iran. You want him to be. You want the economy to collapse. You're excited when you see the price of gasoline go up because it's your attempt to. Because it's just anything he does, you want it to fail. When Biden was president, I didn't want him to fail. I knew he was doing insane, crazy things, but I wasn't cheering on the destruction of the United States. How about this? A prediction from, 1970? Who will start? And they, look at that. President of the United States, obviously a Kennedy. Yes, indeed. I have 2 copies of that one. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. Oh boy. Well, do we want to go through all these strange tales? Probably. But my earliest strange tales is 117, back when. Oh, that reminds me. I was saying, sometimes I write every word of these songs for Suno. Sometimes I just tell you, this is what I want the song to be about, and this is the genre I want it to be, and here's the instruments in it. To me, that's what Stan Lee did. He gave assignments to artists. He said, this is what I want the story to be about. Sometimes he might have just given them a couple of sentences and these characters, and then they came back with the finished art with the story. So they had to add in a lot of connecting dots. And basically they were co-creating the story. And then Stan Lee would come back and fill in the dialogue, which is why if you read a Spider-Man comic done by Steve Ditko and a Fantastic Four comic done by Jack Kirby, it's still the same voice. The voice is what a writer has that makes the writing, oh, I can tell this is written by this person. Like a Hunter S. Thompson book or article in Rolling Stone. When you read it within a few sentences, oh, this is Hunter S. Thompson. I can hear his voice in my head as I read these words. And Stan Lee had that. This is written by Stan Lee. This book is not written by Stan Lee. It doesn't have the same punch to it. Now, people say Stan Lee had no talent. He was always just taking other people's ideas. But those other people had great ideas. They had created great characters, great looks, great worlds. But they were never able to really succeed without Stan Lee in his dialogue. And so that's why I get kind of flustered when I hear people just knocking Stan Lee. It's like, why do you exactly collect Marvel Comics if you hate Stan Lee that much? It seems like you collect Donald Trump memorabilia, but you hate him? Why would you buy Marvel Comics? Because it doesn't make any sense. And then just get angry every time you see, well, this just would have been better if it was just Jack Kirby's words. Well, no, because we've seen Jack Kirby write on his own, and it does not sound like Stan Lee's writing. Even as a little kid, I could tell, oh, this is kind of not that good, but the art sure is pretty. So Jack Kirby was never able to be as successful with anything as he was during those years, I think, with Stan Lee. And the same with Steve Ditko. Even though they created great characters other times of their life, there was never that magic. Like Paul McCartney and John Lennon have done great things outside of the Beatles. Paul McCartney maybe not as much as John Lennon. And Paul McCartney's still around. I think yesterday was his 84th birthday. So he's 4 years older than Trump. But I can't think of anything he's done since I was in fourth or fifth grade that's listenable to me, that's on par with the Beatles. I mean, the theme to Live and Let Die was great. Some of the stuff he did with Wings around that time period was really, really good. Silly Love Songs was kind of, I don't know. I think that you've got to have there's something about two people meeting together that maybe are different enough that Paul, Paul McCartney could write, "It's getting better all the time. It's getting better all the time." And then John Lennon would throw in, "It can't get much worse." And then if Paul McCartney had written that song, it just would have been this happy pablum. And then John Lennon adds a little cynicism in it, and then it makes it great. These two people that have talent, but they need each other. Then sometimes John Lennon without Paul McCartney could get too cynical. And it's a wonderful combination to, how about that? How about this happy synchronicity? Talking about the Beatles, and this is about the time that the Beatles were just hitting the U.S., and they wind up on the cover of Strange Tales. I should have Suno write about this issue. So I'll write a song where this girl in a honky tonk is just read. Or perhaps this I could have Dolph singing this comic. This was owned by Dolph. See that? It says Dolph. Dolph. This is Dolph's copy. No, that could be Ralph. How many kids? And Ralph, oh well. Would you rather be named Dolph or Ralph? That could be an Ralph. But anyway, it belonged to either a Dolph or a Ralph. Oh, wait, it's written here in big letters. Dolph. That answers. So he didn't want this comic being stolen, maybe by his friends or maybe his older brother or younger, more likely younger brother. This is my comic, Dolph. Now, I've got that cover with and without Dolph's autograph. The people that like to slab comics would be, how can I get rid of that name Dolph? What chemicals can I put on my 61-year-old comic book to get rid of that? Anyway. Strange Tales is where Dr. Strange started. And at this point, Fantastic Four was popular, so they have the Human Torch in this comic, and the Thing would appear a lot. But at a certain point, the success of the James Bond spy movies and then the Man from U.N.C.L.E. TV series caused Marvel to take the Nick Fury character that was in World War II and make him into, it's the next issue. So that was, what I just showed you was 134. I wish I had more of these. I have a lot of holes to make, but 135 is the first appearance of Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., who's played by Samuel L. Jackson in the movies. And these comics were very easy for me to buy in the late 70s, early 80s at Lone Star Comics. They've just never been super valuable. I'm not sure why. This is where a lot of the action was happening at Marvel. But I think because it's a split comic just called Strange Tales, Tales of Suspense, Tales to Astonish Comic Journal, they weren't as popular with collectors because people wanted the character's name at the top. And so that one issue would have Nick Fury, and then one issue would have Doctor Strange on the cover. And this one, they figured out a way to have Doctor Strange holding up the splash page to the Shield story, so you can get both of them on the same cover. I've written a couple of songs about Nick Fury. 141, which is exactly how Stan Lee would say, well, I've written this and that. And it's like, well, wait a second. You're not giving credit to the artist. And in my case, I'm not giving credit to the robots enough, which is true. 144. Oh, I'm missing 145. Here's 146. I'm missing 147. Here's 148. I remember at this point, I have like every other issue for a while. Oh, at least I have 149. And this is a great time period. A great time period, man. Oh, another copy. Same one. 150. I'm gradually working my way to the Superboy comics. Oh, shit. What time is it? Oh no. Hold on. I'll be right back. My wife starts work at 11, and I realized it was 10:31, and I usually get her up at 10. You know, it gives her just enough time. So I go and wake her up, and she says, well, I was going to get up at 10:45, so I got to remember a few minutes to go back up and make sure she's awake. So, anyway, whatever. Strange Tales is a great comic. I don't know where I left off. I don't know. Maybe I was here. I can tell this one I bagged in board, or at least I bagged in the early 80s, whenever these My Light bags came out, and they're still holding up really well. So I can tell when I got these books. 151. 152. Another copy of 152. 153. 154. Now, Samuel L. Jackson playing the Nick Fury character. You know, I guess at first I thought, well, he's doing a great job. I mean, it's not the character literally the way he is in the comic, but it was all right, because they had done this Ultimate line of was it called Ultimate, or was it called? It's not the Intimate Spider-Man. It was the Ultimate Spider-Man, the Ultimate line, and they had in that an African-American Nick Fury, and he was actually drawn to look like Samuel L. Jackson before they ever even were. I think those Ultimate comics in the early 2000s or late 90s were designed to show Hollywood what movies could look like if they were made, and so they had already pretty much cast Samuel L. Jackson in the comic, and then they approached him, and I guess he realized, you've been drawing me in the comic. That's pretty cool. He liked the idea. So, but then they made that Captain Marvel movie with the female Captain Marvel, and they made Sergeant Fury get his eye damaged by some cat. It made him kind of a weak character in that movie. So they destroyed the whole image of Nick Fury in that terrible movie. 167. Then Jim Steranko came along and really used. Here's another copy of that issue. He is great. 170. Oh, well, it's technically what happened was it was 167, and Strange Tales became Doctor Strange. So it's still the same comic, 170. And then Nick Fury got his own comic that started with issue 1. There's 174, and then Doctor Strange. This comic was canceled, and then Doctor Strange got his own comic. There's 177 in the early 70s that started with issue 1. 179, 181. I still think Lost in Space would have been better without Dr. Smith. If the series was exactly as it was with that cast, and they just did not have Dr. Smith, or had Dr. Smith killed off after the pilot episode, because he was the one that caused them to be lost in space. He was a terrorist that snuck onto the ship that was, and then he got caught on the ship. He couldn't escape after he sabotaged it. Other people loved, the character was so beloved that they started writing episodes around him, like Fonzie on Happy Days. But I don't know. I think it would have been a great show without him. Here's 3 of Submariner. Submariner is a great comic now. Some of my Submariner are going to be in other boxes because I separated my Silver Age from Bronze Age. Here's a beat up number 5 without a bag and board. Number 6. 10. Great comic. People don't collect this as much. 11. Early 70s, Bill Everett came back, the creator of the Submariner, and did some great stories, great artwork before he passed away. 21. 22. We're getting close to Superboy. And now we have the MeTV Tunes channel, and I think on Saturday afternoon they run the Mighty Mightor and Moby Dick. So I don't know when that starts, maybe a little bit later. 23, 25, is it 10:45 yet? No, got a few minutes. 32. Some people like these episodes where I show comics. It's just, to me, just tedious holding comics up. 37. 38. I remember buying this at Lone Star Comics, this issue. There's another copy of the same issue. You don't need to see it twice. Here's issue 40. And here's the, I see Superboy's next. This is Submariner King Size Special number 1, not bagged and boarded. I know that's a horrible atrocity, and I'm not proud of it, but if there was a place to buy bags and boards within a few miles of me, I would, I have to drive an hour. That's just the way it is. I guess I can order them from Amazon. The lovely Dorma, First Lady of Atlantis. Great stuff. There's also an X-Men special and a Spider-Man special on sale that same month. I think that it was during the summer that the specials came out, right? They're advertising Alter Ego, which is still has come back and is being published today, Ray Thomas's magazine. Okay, my earliest Superboy is number 80. Now, you can see that does not look like Millie Alcock or Alcock or whatever you pronounce her name. Superboy 81. 90. Still 10 cents. 92, they make the 10 cents real big. And then by 95, they switched over to 12 cents. They have it in giant print because the guy that works at the drugstore has been charging 10 cents for comic books since the late 30s. It's now early 60s. Wow, that's 30 years. That was some hard math there to figure that out. So all of a sudden they're 12 cents. And so you got to make sure it's real big so they can see, hey, make sure you're charging that extra 2 cents. When this happened, a lot of boys stopped buying comics. And then by issue 106, it's back small again. Yeah, I've seen charts that showed that boys did not want to pay that extra 2 cents, and the sales dropped on comics that were aimed at boys. Comics that are aimed at girls, Archie, Lois Lane, like that. Those books kept their sales steady. Girls were willing to pay the extra 2 cents. Boys weren't. They, there are other things competing for their allowance, like Big Daddy Roth stickers and Aurora Monster model kits, and who knows what else they might have been indulging in, but they weren't going to pay that extra 12 cents. There's 117. Oh, 2 copies of that. No, there's 3 copies of that. I don't know how this is a terrible condition copy, but so Superboy was actually, Crypto was a much bigger dog. It wasn't a little scruffy dog like it's depicted in the Superman movie last summer and in this new Supergirl movie. But James Gunn is patterning the Crypto after his own personal dog he has at home. Okay, here's a Superboy special. This might be the one I just got from Kevin. I remember there was, I think it is actually. I paid $20. No, I didn't. I probably paid half price for this. I probably paid $10 because of this red sticker from Duncanville Books. And so I don't know. It doesn't hurt to have another copy. Okay, well, let me go see how my wife is doing upstairs. Then that's the end of that box. And we can start with the next box. Let me get it in place. I wonder if this guy's gonna bring that flagpole, man. Okay. Here's now this is Superboy, giant size Superboy 10. That means it's actually 80-page giant number 10. That should be bagged and boarded. Here's 135. Oh, God. It's okay, I'll be back. And when you look at the statistics of sales of comics from the 60s, it's really fascinating. Archie, because they argue, what Marvel said that they had become number 1 and they had taken down DC. It's the Marvel Age of Comics, but DC kept its lead over Marvel. Marvel did rise quite a bit, but throughout that whole time period, Archie was outselling DC and Marvel. And the real bestseller was Mad Magazine, which was EC. EC did not die in 1955. It continued on. EC Publications, if you look at any issue of Mad Magazine, it said EC Publications, until William Gaines got much older and sold it all to Warner, and then they owned it. So EC never really died, and technically, in a way, it's still around because Mad is still sort of published. And I think now they're starting to publish it in a comic book size format, which it hadn't been since the real EC comic book days. I don't know. It's owned by DC Warner now. It's not even worth talking about. But it's just that in the '60s, which is what matters, because the '50s, '60s, and '70s were the interesting periods. I don't want to, care about comics after that time period. I mean, there was some good stuff, but not enough to make me interested. Okay, so whatever. Of course, Batman on TV is probably what changed things because boys stopped buying comics. The sales plummeted when the comics went up to 12 cents from 10 cents in late 1962. And then when Batman came on the air at the beginning of '66, there was a lot of attention drawn to the comic, and a lot of boys went back to comics. Oh boy, it's just great stuff, I thought the first couple of seasons of Smallville was really good, and I just wish that they had allowed him to actually have the Superman suit. But what I really thought was good was the depiction of Lex Luthor. Past the first few seasons, I don't know how it was, but this is also competition where those boys' money was going during the '60s model kits. I mean, there were no video games, so competition for comic books would be sports equipment, model kits, maybe saving for a car, rock and roll records for sure. Of course, competing against comic books would be the records of the Beatles and the Beach Boys and the Rolling Stones. There's which would, of course, be a lot more. You'd get a lot more response from girls buying records than you would buying comic books, because the girls aren't going to come over to read comic books, but they might come over to listen to your records and to dance and stuff. So, and of course, every neighborhood had a garage band. So maybe you were saving to buy instruments too. Because as soon as the Beatles hit in early 1964 in the United States, they'd been around the year before in England, and some of that word had gotten here. Coupon is cut on the back cover on this one. I wonder what they ordered. I'm always fascinated. What did some kid get duped into buying? Take the tape off. Trust me. Yeah, you'd have to buy a drum kit or a guitar or something from Sears. Something. Okay. Oh, this person wanted to become astronaut tough. He wanted to look like this guy, so he cut out the coupon. Now, I know that there was no coupon here. This is an Aurora model kit of this astronaut, and there was no coupon there. So it was definitely, and it's fascinating that inside and outside of the front cover are both astronaut related. Very nice white pages on this one. Other than that, one thing. This is from September of 1967. So astronauts were cool. Still a couple of years away from the moon landing. Less than a year until 2001: A Space Odyssey. Star Trek would be on the air at this point in '67. 141. You hear me? This one's in terrible condition. 144. 147, Legion of Superheroes, man. They're nothing better than Superboy and Legion of Superheroes. Looks like I bought it twice. 152. Yeah, sometimes that looks like that was colored in with a marker. I'd have to double check. 150. There's a crease down the center. This could have been a subscription copy, or it could have just been folded to take it to school and read it when they were bored. 156. 159. You can kind of see at this time period the artwork kind of changed when Neil Adams showed up. Neil Adams did a lot of covers, and then the other artists started to try to draw like Neil Adams and draw in a serious way, because the Batman was wildly popular on TV, and the comic books started to act kind of goofy too, to be kind of like the goofy comedy series and put in giant sound effects and everything. And then when the series got canceled, they were like, oh man, we need to become more serious. And then Neil Adams' artwork helped to give them that seriousness, because it was more another copy of the same issue. So the look of DC changed. You can see the difference in the artwork in the very late 60s. 172. I mean, some are. Ooh, that's neat. I like the look of the building in the background. They kind of used a wash technique to kind of make it photorealistic. I consider the Silver Age to end when this 48 pages for only 25 cents era ends, which is probably about 1971. And that just, and then the DC comics go to 20 cents after that, and that the 20-cent books they keep and up I keep in other boxes. This has a, I believe that's a Kmart sticker, if I'm not mistaken. They were selling it for $0.25, which is what it cost. That wasn't good enough. They had to put a sticker on there telling you it was 25 cents. $183, not in very good condition. Okay, what comes on now after this? I don't remember. 187. Okay, Giant Superboy Annual number 1. Yeah. And then Giant Superman number 11. And then this book has become sought after. Loved 1971. Got a really cool cover. And then here's my my copy of Superman number 1. And Superman 97, but it's not real. It's from Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut Collector's Edition, Volume 1 from the 70s. Oh, Fireball XL5. Yeah, okay. I have that whole series on DVD. 136, my first real copy of Superman. 136. Actually, I might have some books I need to file into here. Let me check. Hold on. Yeah, I just remembered that I do. This Submariner, number 22, I have a box of books that haven't been filed yet. Let's see, do I already have this one? Oh boy, I think I do. Submariner 22. Yeah, I already have it. Okay, it's all right. This issue of Superboy 115 I got back in January, and let me put that in. And then Superman number 119. I got these from Gotham City Comics. He just sent them to me the way he got them, so they're not bagged and boarded. But boy, I really need to bag and board books this early. What did I just tell you was my earliest Superman? The earliest Superman was 136, so that's no longer the case because now I have Superman number. Look at this great ad on the back. Look at that guy. So I have Superman 119. How about that? White pages. Got a little bit of a spine split, but it's a book from February of 1958. So really it would have come out at Christmas of 1958. Because books are always dated in advance. And then this one is Superman 131. So those are now my two earliest Supermans. Okay. I need to paint that Godzilla kit. So we can look at the rest of these comic books another time. So I need to go downstairs, get the paint and brushes and some water. Again, I did not get the this bottom area well enough. It's okay. Let's see what we can do. Okay, I have the paint down in the basement. I was painting while I was doing the radio show, but the light down there is not really good enough. I think it's better to paint up here. I just have to be careful about not spilling the paint. And I want to get Godzilla's skin exactly right for the way he was in the late 60s. Mid 1960s. So I'm going to maybe put a Godzilla movie on YouTube so I can get that just right. Okay. Yeah, tomorrow's the first official day of summer. Longest day of the year, I already told you that. I'm going to try to do a special broadcast for that. This should be a pretty easy kit to paint. So this episode's been pretty much about 1960s kid culture with model kits and comic books from that time period. But then we've also discussed quite a bit about this artificial intelligence. And yeah, it's fascinating because if you play around with it, you'll realize I don't think the people that are creating this stuff really know what's going on. Now, an old friend of mine named David Hansen that I knew back from, when would that have been? Early 90s, probably about 1990 when I was doing my magazine, The Sophisticate. He was good friends with a guy named Forrest that contacted me when I had my magazine out for sale at some record stores in Dallas and punk rock stores, tattoo parlors, places like that. And he was a good friend of Forrest, and now he's one of the leading AI people. He created this female robot named Sophia that you may have seen on TV that has this clear back of her head where you can see the computer workings, and you talk to it and it can respond to you. And there was a documentary, I haven't talked with David in years, but there was a documentary about him on YouTube. It's still there, about him and Sophia. He lives over in Hong Kong now, building his AI world, but he and his wife were talking about how, and you can see when he's giving a public display of this robot, they programmed in responses to the robot could respond to people, but you can see he's always on pins and needles about what the robot could say next, because sometimes it doesn't speak the way it's been told to. And he and his wife are in the kitchen talking about how they know there's some other force, something that's talking through her sometime, and then he says, yeah, I know, to his wife. I think Elon Musk has said we're summoning the demon. Okay, so we got put some water in here, and we can get to painting this, painting old Godzilla. Yeah, I thought that guy would be here by now, and we'd have the flagpole put up, man. Oh, well. Now, when I was a kid buying my first comic books, really liked Harvey, with Casper and Hot Stuff and all those great characters. Wendy, the good little witch. They would always say on the covers and different places in the comics, see me on TV. And the only Casper cartoons I saw on television were the theatrical Paramount cartoons from the 40s. Casper started as cartoons that played before the movies in theaters. And then the comic book came later. But in the comic book, they created all this cast of characters that weren't in those old cartoons, like Wendy and Spooky and the Ghostly Trio and the older witches that were trying to keep Wendy in line, being bad. Those characters weren't in those cartoons. So, but it said, in the comics, it said, see all of us on TV. And then I later realized, okay, there were some cartoons made in the early 60s. And I think it was called the New Casper Cartoon Show or something like that, or Casper and Friends. And they had They had Wendy and all those, and Nightmare, the ghost horse, were in that cartoon. But that never aired on TV, at least not where I live. So yesterday on YouTube, I found someone had a playlist of all of those cartoons, and I recorded all of them. So that's fun to see those characters animated. Hot Stuff was never animated. They made a Richie Rich cartoon in the 90s based on that movie with Macaulay Culkin. But I don't remember ever seeing Richie Rich animated to look like he did in the comic book. But Hot Stuff would have been interesting, but maybe they just didn't. No studio wanted to make a cartoon based on a little baby demon. I don't know. Okay, so Drew, you gotta be quiet because. See, my job is to keep Drew quiet and to keep Drew from going upstairs while my wife is doing her job upstairs, because she's doing a job by phone. Now, I don't think her barking that something outside is going to create a problem, but if she went upstairs and barked, that could be a real bad thing. So I really should have Drew kind of on a leash. But I'm keeping an eye on her, and that's what I've been doing for a little bit. Okay. So I just put some green on this. This is kind of like my color palette, whatever you call it. The artist that has that little thing. I just put some paint down here, and then, but my problem is I'm running mighty low on white. So I'm going to have to get some more white paint soon. Let's try some different green shades. White is a very important color when you're painting. Maybe some yellow would be good. I've got Top Cat on. I turned on MeTV Tunes. Top Cat is a fantastic cartoon. It was not. It was also like Johnny Quest was on in prime time. Flintstones was a prime time cartoon, like The Simpsons. And I think Top Cat only ran one season, which is a damn shame. But in other countries like Mexico, they worship this Top Cat cartoon. They call it Don Gato. And they love it so much that they've made new episodes, like Top Cat movies, animated movies that were made in Mexico and that never aired here. Just like they love Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man, and so when they I think stupidly killed off Gwen Stacy in the Amazing Spider-Man comic book in the early 70s in the United States, they approached Marvel and said, "Can we just continue on and keep Gwen Stacy alive with a different storyline for Mexico only?" And they let him do it. So there's two timelines that diverge, and in the Mexican comics, Gwen Stacy stays alive, and there are a lot of people that clamor for those Mexican comics. And I always thought Marvel's missing the boat by not reprinting those Mexican comics for Americans translated into English, because I would definitely buy that, because I always thought killing Gwen Stacy was a criminal move, and Stan Lee agreed with me, because he wasn't involved in writing the comic at that point, and because she was a cool character, and you could have gone on with Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane and had a Betty and Veronica kind of triangle. It would have been fine. I just don't like I just didn't like that idea. Okay, so we primered this guy, and I'm going to paint him a darker color, black. Then I'm going to paint lighter colors, dry brushed on top of that, and that'll leave the black in there. Some people do it the opposite way and then put a black wash to let it sink into the little sculpted lines. I kind of do it the opposite way, but who says who's right? I don't know. This is just the way I've always done it. So how are you guys doing? Are you doing fine? You all doing great? That's wonderful to hear. Um, get a little bit more water on the brush. Oh, well. What are some good bands that are actually out today? I like Bethlehem Shalom, which is actually her real name. Her mother named her Bethlehem Shalom. She's really good. The Suffragettes. There's a band, I think, out of Germany called Lucifer. I know it sounds terrible, but I think they're pretty good. Who else is out there? How'd you like that Barack Obama library? He created this library that looks like maybe the Bizarro World version of the yeah, it looks like it's from the Bizarro World. It looks like a alien prison. Everyone agrees it's like an ugly building. He spent $1 billion on it. But people that have socialist leanings like to build ugly buildings. I don't understand it. There's something about, well, maybe that's not always true. Where did the black go? But if you notice, McDonald's and those fast food restaurants look very different than they did when we were kids. They used to be happy-looking places. Now they look like prisons. They're gray, and there's no color, and and I don't know if it's part of this socialist gulag culture. No, or maybe it's a communist thing. I don't know. It's like you don't make anything look good. You kind of make people despair, and then maybe that's how you crack them into giving up their culture. I don't know. But I've certainly noticed that modern architecture is very ugly compared to the past. one of the main things. Here's when everything went bad, and I think it was in the 1980s. It's kind of symbolic of everything. The Holiday Inn chain. When you were going down the highway and your family was on a vacation, you saw a Holiday Inn sign lit up with a beautiful neon and flashing. I mean, I think you can see video on YouTube of it if you're too young to remember what that looked like. There's nothing like actually seeing those signs in real life. They tore all those down at some point in the early 80s, I think, the Holiday Inn chain, and now they have just ugly signs, and the buildings are ugly. But there was a time when motels were beautiful with flashing neon and attracting your eye from the highway. I don't know. That was just something that happened. And that happened. And then Crisis on Infinite Earths, even though that had beautiful artwork and was interesting to read. Oh, they killed off Supergirl in that, and Flash, and I forget who else they killed off. All the characters from the Golden Age, basically their versions. Oh well. They made it a lot easier because then you just know after a certain time period, you don't collect those comics. It made it. I mean, if there were still comics coming out today that were good, then that would be more of a financial drain on me. So maybe I should thank them for making comics shitty, and movies are now shitty, and there's nothing I can think of I'm looking forward to, and that's hardly ever been. Every summer there were movies that I was eager to see. Now, oh, Hong Kong Phooey is coming on. Shit. I'm making a mess, man. Hong Kong Phooey, Panrific. I have a lot of nostalgic memories for this cartoon, but it wasn't really a good cartoon? Well, maybe it is. If I have nostalgic memories for it, I guess I have to consider it a good cartoon, but it's not good like Top Cat was, man. Top Cat was great. Somewhere I've got a book that tells about who sculpted these kits and who sculpted which monster. This is probably the first American toy based on the Japanese monsters that I'm aware of. But crap. Hong Kong Fooey, Panrific. I ought to use the term panrific more. Why did he say panrific? What does that mean? Pan. What did he had a? Did he have a like a cooking pan on his head? It seems like I remember that at some point. I don't remember. His voice is Scatman Crothers. I remember that. Well, my goal was to have this Godzilla kit painted up by the end of this episode. That's why I created a Godzilla thumbnail for this episode. I think the neighbor's out mowing the lawn. Today was supposed to be a rainy day, like all day. I guess that's been delayed. Yeah, I just can't believe how excited people get about algae. Finally, we've got something on Trump. We can't get him on anything, but we can get him on the fact that he allowed algae to come back. They were so hoping that there would be rain that would mess up that UFC, that Ultimate Fighting Championship thing. This is going to be embarrass Trump. There's going to be rain. It's going to ruin his event. And then